Hello gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Co. YouTube channel, and this is a preview of WarBonds. That's right, this is a preview of WarBonds Battle for Vitoria. This is by Punk This Studios, and this game is currently on Kickstarter, so you can check out the link down below if you'd like to see. But first, I will be doing this preview to show you even more about it. Now, thank you to the Punk This Studios for sponsoring this video, and with that, I'm going to jump right in because this is a very exciting skirmish game with a lot going on, so I will jump into it. As you can see here for my video, I even have things layered over other things. As you guessed it, you do not normally have this board over this board. Things are usually a bit more spread out. You wouldn't have your tokens on the board, but I have this shown like this just to give you a good example of the pace of play through the game and what it will feel like. But just keep in mind that it is definitely a bigger game than what this is representative of, and each player will have their own player side with quite a few of these cards for their different armies, and depending on the number of players, you will need quite a bit of room for this game. In WarBonds, players are going to be playing as different warlords, and you will be then fighting to win in 3 different ways. You only need to achieve one path to victory, but there are 3 different ways to do it. Now, every warlord has a camp. Your camp can be leveled up. You'll basically get certain tokens that you can cash in for better tokens, and then you will use that for their leveling up system. And as soon as your camp reaches level 3, if you are the first one to do it, you win the game. The other way to win is to just be the last one standing. That's the easiest way to understand, is just to be the last warlord on the board, and if everyone else is taken out, you then win as well. Now, there's also a dragon track, which kind of moves throughout the game as something that's happening to everybody, and once this dragon reaches the end of the track that he is on, he arrives and the game will end. Now, when that happens, you will get points for the amount of people that you have left on the board. We will get into that in a second because it is a little different depending on your warlord or your squad cards, but that is what would happen for that. So basically, players will be playing through the different area, trying to fight and attack each other, trying to get different tokens so that they can upgrade their camps, trying to fight each other just to take them out, because taking out another warlord is the most important. And if you have the most people surviving at the end of the game, you can also survive the dragon, or at least be the last one to die from the dragon. WarBonds is a game for 2 to 5 players, and at the beginning of the game, players will choose their warlord that they will play as. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind to consider when you're choosing your warlord, but there are quite a few warlords that you can choose, and they will be different from your squad people. So your warlords will have their own standees, they will have their own spot on the initiative track, and they will basically be your first unit in play as well. Then you'll be able to deploy future units, but you will start with your warlord, and you can see that they have a much higher health than your squad people. So for example, we have Tingus the Unchained here, and he has a 32 health. And right behind that, you can see that he has an initiative of 8. So I have him over in the 8 track with his initiative. Now, he also has a movement of 4. And then there's a few other statistics that have to go on with these cards. Now, at its heart, WarBonds is going to be a skirmishing game where you are going to be playing your different people, your squad members, as well as your warlords against each other, and using that to get different resources, such as the tokens you're getting to upgrade your war camp, as well as taking out the opponents. Also, please don't mind that I chose to show you Tingus the Unchained. He is the brute and the unstoppable, and I prefer this type of character, so I chose this one to show you. Normally, you wouldn't have your character cards like this on the table. They're just here to be able to show you because we are within the frame of this major board, but I will move them once I go over them just to show you guys. One thing that I enjoyed about WarBonds is that there are different weaknesses and resistances depending on the unit that you're using. So if you take a look at Tingus, you'll see that he is not vulnerable to any type of damage. He is also not immune to any type of damage, but he is resistant to these 2 types of damage. Now, something that's great about WarBonds that I have not yet shown you is that every player, while you're playing, will have a player guide. Now, there will be these player guides that look like this, and you'll be able to look through it to see all of the different units that are in play. Not only that, but it also has reference items for you. So there are different things that you'll be able to see. So if you wanted to see what he is resistant to, if you wanted to see the symbols, it would be fire damage, and normal damage. And you can see all of your different damage types on this handy dandy player aid. I did find that this was very useful, not only for you to see all of the units, but to be a reminder of different types of damage when you're strategizing your turn. Now, I may have jumped the gun a little bit, but this book, this player guide, is the meat and potatoes of the game. You'll be playing with this player guide against your opponents and using this not only to know the abilities of your own units, but the abilities of your opponent's units. Now, there is a system in the game where there is alignment, there is good, evil, chaotic, and lawful. And with that, different units will have different alignments and only listen to certain leaders. A good squad member will not become a member of the team for an evil unit, and in the same way, different things will happen depending on what types of people you have in your area. So, for example, when your warlord makes different attacks, different things will happen depending on who is within line of sight of that warlord. Now, what I mean by that is that law units that are in the warlord's presence will gain 1 loyalty token after they attack an enemy unit. But after a warlord attacks an enemy unit, that warlord's chaos units within their presence will gain a loyalty token instead. Neutral units aren't affected by this, but another part that will matter with their alignment would be when a warlord loses an honorable duel. When this happens, it's when 2 warlords are dueling between each other, and their chaos and law units within their presence will also lose loyalty because they don't want to see you attacking another warlord. Now, loyalty is very important because if you don't have the loyalty of your units, they might just leave you. That's right, throughout WarBonds, you will be summoning different units to the board, and then if they are not loyal to you and the choices that you are making, they might be able to recall and just leave the game on you. When this happens, not only does your unit decide to leave because they do not have any loyalty tokens, but they also could join another warlord's army. That's right, they could leave you and go and fight with someone that they think is doing a better job. Now, players are able to prevent this if they're able to spend their own leader tokens to stop this from happening. However, if you are not able to pay that cost, or maybe you decided that you don't want to, you will lose those units. Now, in WarBonds, it's very unique that you are not going into the game with a specific army. You have this book that I showed you where there are different options of characters that you can play, and there are quite a few options for you to choose from. However, as I said, only certain units will join you depending on your alignment. Now, besides that, you are able to choose what units you want and what is most advantageous for you during the game. There are only 4 copies of each unit, so if there are more on the board, you are not able to continue summoning them, and other people may have summoned the unit that you want. But apart from that, you are able to react to the situation that's happening and use this book to decide what units you want to bring out to the board. Now, as you can see, we are a few rounds ahead where our warlords have started moving around the board and summoning different squad members that are also now in our initiative table. Now, for battling, it is all going to be extremely unique based on these characters. Everyone does a base of 1 damage, which makes sense, but everything is so augmented by the different things that are going on that I am going to show you and go through this, but something fun that is very small to note is you can see that I have these vermin bombers here. They are jesting. Now, the verb that is with them, I'm sorry, not the verb, the adjective, jesting is just a different way to know whose is whose, so that doesn't really mean anything for the game. You can see that I have the other vermin bombers here, and their cards are all behaving exactly the same. However, the other ones are perverse, vandals, and maniacals, so they don't sound like good people, but they might be very helpful when you're in a pinch. So, you will be summoning these units. You can see that our different, all of these units are on our initiative table, and when the round is resolving, you will move this current turn indicator standee. Usually this would be a standee, but I have it flat for you to be able to see, but this would move through, going down and left to right through the initiative table, allowing everyone to take an initiative turn. Now, if a unit was summoned that turn, you can see that they are flipped over, they are disabled for that turn, and when the initiative tracker comes to them, it would skip their turn for that round. I cannot stress enough how unique all of these different units are and what they can do for you on the board. Now, this is an extremely tactical game that will last a very long time. It will be hours of gameplay for you and your friends that you are able to go through and make different strategic choices. Alright, and with that, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what your turns will look like, because the point of the game will be taking your turns with your different units and using that to work toward victory. Now, you can see that right now Tangus has the adept archers and the vermin bombers. Now, these are different creatures that they're able to summon. And you can see that Tangus is a chaotic evil character. The vermin bombers are chaos, and the adept archers are neutral, so you can see that he doesn't have any good units summoned because he simply wouldn't be able to do so. Now, Tangus himself has a few different things that he's able to do. I'm not going to go over every single unit. That would be a bit crazy for us to do in a preview, but I will go over what I have set up for Tangus just so you can get an idea of how unique these characters are and what they can be doing to help you work your way toward victory. Now, Tangus has this ability, Fire Frenzy. Now, during his turn, the war leaders have their own specific tokens that they'll be using that aren't the loyalty tokens. So, say for example, Tangus had some. During his turn, he could pay 1 to heal 2, and then axes gain +1, and can optionally deal fire damage. He also has Battle Pride. Now, this is his special ability that he'll be able to use these leadership tokens for, but he's able to gain 2 instead whenever Tangus challenges a warlord to a duel. If Tangus wins a duel without having an ally unit interrupt it, ally units within his range will gain 1 loyalty token. So that is a way for them to see him fighting in battle and being very proud of what he's doing. Now there's also Lord of Rankaroth, which is at the end of the turn, he will gain 2 leadership tokens if Tangus attacked an enemy war camp. So you will be using Tangus probably most often to be going after your enemy war camps. Now, a few other things that you can see on his card, but his axes deals normal damage +1 for hit, which would be in addition to the base 1 damage that he does. And then it reminds you to check his proximity to see who would be reacting to a chaotic evil character attacking. Now, the vermin bombers are a way to show you what these squads will start looking like, but you can see that they are a squad group of 10. That means that there are 10 vermin bombers hanging out in this group, and they have an initiative of 5, a movement of 6, which is flying, which makes sense because they are these cheeky flying owls, and then they have their attack and no immunity, resistance, or vulnerability. Now you can go over to look at their other parts of the card, but they have Bomb, which means this can deal fire damage, +1 versus very small, +1 versus very large, and ground, which means it cannot target units on sky terrain. There's also Cluster Bomb, which means you would pay 1 resource to deal fire or acid damage, +1 damage versus small, +1 damage versus large, and it would also be a ground and splash type of attack. Now they have this final attack down here that's kind of fun, where it has live ammo. Nearby ally small bestial squad units, during their turn, can take an action to sacrifice one of the people in their group to fully resupply this unit. If resource tokens were gained, then both this and the ally unit gain 1 loyalty token. Now, one other thing to note for squads is that as it is a group of 10, anytime that it has at least 1 damage on it, its total attack would be 1 less than what is shown on the card. So you can see that this is a 3, but as soon as it takes 1 damage, it would be a 2 instead. So as you can see, that's one of the units that the warlord would have. That's one that Tangus decided to summon. But another one to add to the complexity of what the characters will look like, we also have the adept archers. Now they are neutral, which means that anyone can have them in their team. It's one of the base units that people are able to summon, but this is what they do. So they have a bow, which means they're able to do range damage that deals normal damage, and it has +1 versus flying, which means it would do an extra damage against these vermin bombers. Now they also have True Shot, which is during their turn they can pay 1 resource and their bow can deal any damage type, making it fire, acid, anything that you'd want, and it also has Mark. You can use this to pay 2 resources and target a unit within 1 space becomes marked until the start of its turn. Any unit attacks versus a marked unit gain +1 damage, and marksmanship. This unit gains 1 loyalty whenever it kills an enemy unit while using True Shot. So that is just an example of 2 of the different squad units that you can have on the board on top of your warlord, and on top of that you can have up to 6 in play. Now they can be 6 unique ones as long as they follow the rules of me being an evil chaotic character and that they want to be there and hang out with me, but if anyone has any of the units that I want to use, I could go and try to kill that unit that they have so that it returns to the box and then I am able to summon it instead. Now, since there are warlords and squad members, you are able to attack with both, and something unique happens when you have a warlord attack another warlord. When this happens, it will be a dueling, and you would look at this as a dueling table. Now, if warlords choose to attack each other, you can pay to stop the dueling. It would be this initial check for interruptions, where you can pay 1 loyalty to attack or block, and then you would go through the attack sequence. Now, this is very fun that you can see that warlords are attempting to take each other out, but this will create a cycle of rounds of dueling until it is resolved, and that is another thing that players are able to do to propel them toward victory. Now, another thing that I think was very great about WarBonds is you can see all these dice. There are dice over here off to the side of the table, but what are all these dice for? Where's the randomness in WarBonds? There isn't any. This is highly strategic. This is a game where you'll be planning out every single attack, similar to certain card games, and these dice, they're just for tracking damage. Again, similar to card games. So the only dice that are used in the game will be tracking damage that your units are taking on your cards, which you would have off of the board, but in your own player area, and you would be tracking the different damage that they are taking. So that is the only point of the dice in the game, and that is another strong aspect of WarBonds, and is that it is completely strategic. All of the choices are up to you, and there is no randomness whatsoever in the game. However, this can be a bit of a long game because there is so much strategy involved and so many different unique characters that you're able to bring into the game. It takes a lot of understanding of the different units, what they're able to do, and how they interact with yours to be able to move through the game. This has been a preview of WarBonds. Thank you to Punk This Studios for sponsoring this video, and as a reminder, their Kickstarter link is down below. Their current campaign is active, and you can check out WarBonds Battle for Vitoria yourself and see all of the different units and different things that they are adding for the campaign. I'm Professor Meg. Thank you very much for watching the Board Game Code channel, and I will see you next time. I hope you have a good day.